So, in this chapter, I'm just going to use a mixture of Photoshop and the actual questions to answer Chapter 33's questions. So, if Canada has an absolute advantage in the production of oil relative to the United States, then what? So, the two big concepts when it comes to advantages in trade and this class that you must remember is absolute advantage and comparative advantage. So, absolute advantage deals with whoever can produce more of a specific good using the same amount of resources and time and everything else. And comparative advantage is who can produce a certain good at the lowest opportunity cost. So comparing production levels of more than one good is required to calculate comparative advantage. So absolute advantage in production of oil for the United States or for Canada relative to the United States is this idea that we need to be able to produce more oil for a certain amount of time than the States. So let's see which answer could say that. Canada may or may not have comparative advantage in producing oil relative to the United States. This is true. The opportunity cost of producing oil is lower in Canada than the United States. We don't know. Canada also has comparative advantage in producing some good other than oil. We don't know. The opportunity cost of producing oil is higher in Canada than the United States. We still don't know. Canada also has a comparative advantage in producing oil. We don't know. So even though you have absolute advantage in the production of one good, it does not mean that you have comparative advantage in that good with respect to the other country. If you think about notes from this class, well, the rancher was more productive in both goods than the farmer, but the rancher did not have comparative advantage in producing both goods relative to the farmer. The diagram below shows Robinson Crusoe's annual production possibilities boundary for the production of bananas and coconuts. Refer to this figure starting from point A and moving to point B. Robinson Crusoe's opportunity cost of producing each additional kilogram of coconuts is what? This is a straight line PPF curve. Straight line PPF curve implies this constant trade-off between the two goods, which implies a constant opportunity cost. So this should be a very easy answer, constant. It doesn't change as we go through. Same thing will go here. This will be a constant opportunity cost as well. This question here is probably one of the questions I get the most questions about. And you really have to put yourself in the right mindset. So this is the one I'll spend a little bit more time on. So this figure shows the annual production possibilities for the production of fish and ice. Suppose that a trading partner offers to give Arctic land ice. So the trading partner gives Arctic land ice. So let's say I'll say the partner, he's the one giving ice, and Arctic land is going to be giving fish instead of this ice. So ice in exchange for its fish. So if Arctic land is to improve its consumption possibilities from this trade, the terms of trade must be 1 ton of ice for how many tons of fish. Well, naturally, even if I didn't calculate this out, often these questions will only have one good answer. Well, they'll always have one best answer. And in this case here, well, if I'm giving fish in exchange for ice, I want to be giving the least amount of fish in exchange for ice. And in all of these cases, this is the least amount of fish I can give up. So I expect it to be 0.33 will be the right answer. If I really want to look at it and prove it, well, what's the setup that I have here? Well, so for Arctic land, I'm talking of Arctic land, I can produce, let's go for the pen. Okay. I could produce 100 fish or 200 tons of ice. So for every unit of fish that I send off, I'm giving up 2 tons of ice. I'm giving up fish, but for 1 ton of ice, so for 1 fish, I'm giving up 2 tons of ice. For 1 ice, I'm giving up half a fish. Because for every 1 ice, for 200 ice, 100 fish. So for every 1 ice, I'm giving up half a fish. If I'm giving up fish, I would never want to give up more than 0.5 fish to improve my consumption possibilities. I need to give less than 0.5. If you think of that whole range that we do in the other videos, the terms of trade range, 0.5 would be the limit. But Arctic land is giving up fish. It wants to give it 0.5 at most. So 0.5 tons of fish is the most it wants to give up. But here in the question, it's very specific. It wants to improve its consumption possibilities from this trade. At 0.5, they're giving the same trade-off that they can produce themselves, the self-sufficiency trade-off. So this wouldn't work. They wouldn't do it. So 0.33 is the only one that's below 0.5, and it is the right answer. According to David Ricardo's principle of comparative advantage, there will be gains from international trade by any country with opportunity cost different from other countries. That is true. That is the right answer, but let's see the other bad answers. Only by a country with an absolute advantage in production of some commodity. Not necessarily the case. You don't need to have absolute advantage to have an incentive to trade. Only by developed countries? No. By only one country, as often costs are identical across countries. No one would gain in that case. By any trading country with opportunity costs similar to other countries. It's not very clear. So there will be gains when anytime you'll trade with anyone that doesn't have the same opportunity costs as you. So there is this trading potential there going on. Okay. The increase in the nation's output and consumption that result from specialization in trade are called the gains from trade. Absolute advantage is that concept we talked about earlier in the video. Autarky is a situation where the government is not really present. There's no trade going on. Comparative advantage, was explained before. The terms of trade are the actual trading terms, are the limits, or the actual the terms of trade limits that we talked about, or the actual decision of saying 0.33 fish for one ice. That's the terms of trade, but the action of getting more output from into consumption than before is called the gains from trade. If I finish the attempt and I submit it, I could see that these are the 5 right answers. So hopefully that question of Arctic land is clear, which is just one that you have to make sure you wrap your head around. You have to make sure that you understand who's producing what are the actual situations going on there. And if you just remember the idea that you're going to want to give up a certain max and there's only one right answer, well, it's going to have to be at one of the 2 limits.